everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Summer. For those who are new, today we are doing a haircut tutorial. I'm going to be showing you guys a haircut I get requested often in salon amongst my finer hair clients. We're going to be doing a one length haircut, so getting this cut nice and thick and full looking on the bottom, but I'm going to be adding in some nice face framing pieces, as this is a way to really open it up around the face while maintaining that thickness and fullness in the back. So this is a great cut for those finer hair types that want to see some movement but not the commitment of full layers. So let's get started. All right, so we are just gonna start off with some good old sectioning. We've got a nice side part here. This is kind of where I was naturally falling, so I'm just gonna go with it. So we're gonna come in directly and separate ear front to back. I'm gonna comb all of this back and then clip the front forward. So like I said at the beginning, this is a cut that is, it's really ideal for anybody, but it's especially great for people with finer hair types. So we're gonna be keeping it all one length in the back, and what that is going to allow for is, with your finer hair types, keeping it all one length is gonna maintain the most amount of thickness and fullness that your hair has. So it's going to look nice and full back there, versus where if you layer it too much, you kind of start thinning out more. So I'm just gonna be basically evening this cut out. It was a little kind of wonky. I haven't touched the length yet on the mannequin. So to do my one length haircuts, I'm just still gonna separate into sections in the back. So you can split right down the middle if you want, or just do one big section across. But I like to take two smaller subsections just to keep it a little neater. And then you would want to customize the length for wherever your client wants to bring it up or leave it long. Or if you are a client in salon getting this done, let your stylist know where you want to bring the length up to. So I'm just going to come in. I'm going to bring this up about an inch, I suppose. And I'm going to be doing a blunt cut, so that way we keep a nice full line. And then we'll just be moving up this back of the head as we go to create our base length. I'm gonna take our next section. If you've watched any of my tutorials, I always say don't take too big of sections. That way you can see through to your guide. We've got our final section here to create our perimeter. And again, I usually always am combing down with the fine side of my comb just to really pull some nice tension there. And then before moving to your sides, what I like to do is I'll stand directly behind the client, and I'm just gonna pull both the corners to the middle, bring them down, and make sure that they're lining up to make sure that the length is even all the way across. And everything's looking good. So now what you're gonna do is you're gonna come directly into your side. If they have very, very fine, thin hair, you can bring this all down at one time, but to be on the safe side, it's still best to work in sections just so you can make sure to see your guide. And we're just gonna come in, see the hair from the back. If you wanna angle it a little bit, you can, or if you want it dead even, that's fine, whatever your preference is, as either your suggestion as a stylist or if you're a client, whatever you prefer. just barely any bit left on this last side. All right, and then I'm gonna finish off on this other side of the head, and then we will get into the face framing. And then again, I would be standing in front of my client to make sure that the length on the sides is matching up. Again, you would pull towards the center. Sometimes even with a side part, I'll even adjust a little bit to where the center of the side part is to make sure that the length is meeting up. So to take your face framing pieces for your finer or thin haired clients, you really want to make sure you're taking into account how their hairline naturally lays, because with me in general, I have extensions in right now, but I naturally am very receded in my top corners here. So it makes any face framing that I have very, very minimal. If I cut into it too much, I don't naturally have really any weight in this underneath area. So if I remove too much of this without my extensions in, I don't have the hair there to keep the weight around my face. So you just wanna make sure you're lifting up your client's hairline and seeing how that's falling. Obviously, you wanna kind of talk with them about how long or short they wanna see their face framing pieces. We're gonna do this in the idea of sort of like a light, long side swept bang, where when their hair is pulled back, they might have some pieces falling around their face, but definitely just make a note of that in the consultation with your client. So to do my face framing, I'm gonna go back to that original sectioning, separating the front from the back, and I'm gonna clip my back out of the way, just so I'm not accidentally pulling any of that hair, and that way I can really focus on the front pieces. All right, so now that we have the front separated from the back, I personally like to start off on the side that they part their hair to. So if they wear their hair going to the right, I'll cut this side first and vice versa. So again, really determine where they're wanting to see that shortest piece. For this demonstration, we are going to be taking her just right around her lip area. And so what I will do to set my guide for the front pieces is I'm gonna take like this little baby triangle, so to speak, along where the part is, to create my guide. So I've got just a little bit of a baby one, nothing crazy. If you wanted, again, for just making it comfortable for yourself, you can clip out the rest of the hair of the way if you're nervous about any of that hair falling in the way. So we're gonna come down. I don't wanna pull super tight. You don't want to do that, because what that's going to do is it's gonna spring up a little bit, especially if they have any wave, curl, or texture. So just lightly comb it down. I'm closing it with my fingers, but I'm not pulling it taut. I still have this little bit of bend here. So we're gonna meet it right at where our guide is, which again, I'm doing it right in the lip area. So right underneath it, I'm just gonna come up and point cut into that. So that is gonna help me create my guide so I can set the rest of the hair. And push this hair over out of the way and go in now to create my face framing. All right, so we've got our guide set here. She's just right at her lip. So when you are creating your face frame, the more you angle your hands down into it, the more severe the face framing is going to be. So somebody like me, who I don't have the hair underneath here, I would do a more gentle face framing. So I would start with my first section, and I'll show you what I mean by a more gentle face framing. So I'm gonna come in with my hands at an angle. So instead of coming in with my shears and going back, I'm actually gonna direct the hair slightly towards me. And what that is going to allow is for more length to remain and also weight underneath to remain. Hopefully that's making sense and I'm explaining that right. So I've got my guide here, my first section. I see my guide here. I'm gonna come in, and as I cut, I'm gonna be pulling this hair towards me. So look at all that length I'm keeping there. I'm gonna do that one more time for you guys. I've got my shears at an angle, my fingers are at an angle, and I'm bringing that hair towards me as I cut. So she's keeping a lot of that weight here. So again, that is ideal for people who are like me and a little bit bald underneath. You can see here we've got a nice guide here going. So I'm just gonna keep adding to that. I'm gonna take my next section. So if your client has a really nice full face frame, you can certainly angle in a little bit more if you want to take out more weight. And often what I'll do after I get it dry, I'll show you too how I go in and kind of remove a little bit more bulk. But for the purposes of envisioning, this is a fine haired client with maybe not the thickest, fullest hairline, but they want a little bit of shape. You're gonna want to go in, have your angle, cut, and kind of pull that hair towards you as you're going down. So that way you're keeping that nice length, and you're just gonna keep taking your section as you work your way down through the rest of the hair. So I can see my guide here, coming in, cut as I'm pulling towards me. Next section. Again, I'm pulling with the fine side of my comb to really get that hair nice and taut. And the further you go back in the head, or to your section, I should say, the less hair that you will be cutting. And even really once you get towards the back, I will come in just sort of from the bottom. So I can see my guide here of where her one length is, and I'm just gonna cut up into it. Again, all this hair is coming forward towards me. Angle those hands as you pull and cut. So it's a very soft, minimal face frame, but it does break up for a little bit of a swoop around the face, but you're maintaining the weight and thickness here. So this is where it is key for somebody like me who has these little bit of a bald spot at the top, because majority of my length and thickness comes all from my top layers. So I really just like the minimal outer layer face framing so I can get a little bit of a swoop, but I've got all that length and bulk down here. So now we're gonna do the same thing on this other side, and we're just gonna match it up. So I'm gonna take my first little section here. Actually, before I cut, I'm gonna just clip this bang out of the way. So we're gonna take our first section. We're kind of coming down almost to the nose is basically where I was before. We're angling our fingers, coming in with our scissors, and pull that hair towards you as you glide down. Next section. Angle towards you. And cut while pulling that hair towards you. So you're over directing the hair across the face. You're coming over their nose a little bit, or wherever you're crossing over to the center of their part. The over directing is key if you're trying to keep the most amount of length to keep that weight. And again, as we move further to the back, you have a little bit less hair to cut. We've got our last section here. Bring it forward. I've got this little bit of hair. I'm just gonna point cut into that. So again, we've got a nice swoop here, but like the other side, we've got some good weight and length down here. So what I'm gonna do before I dry it is I do this with all my face framing, whether it's for fine hair, thick hair, or whatnot. I'm basically coming in and I'm just gonna take in small sections, a little bit at a time. I'm gonna comb everything forward and I'm going to twist and just cut out any little bit of hair that's poking out at the top. And what that does is it just helps kind of refine everything, perfect it a little bit, and make it a little cleaner. So come forward, twist, and cut. And it also helps add just a little bit of layer throughout the top, just slightly more. So we're gonna finish on this other side. Gonna take our first section, come forward, twist, cut. Come forward with it, twist. Got this little baby guy up here. And you can even, if you wanted to bring it closer to your own body, you can. Pull it towards you. And then my last little check I will do is I'm gonna come in, bring everything up and over, and just barely skim out any hairs that might poke out. This is just my own personal way I like to do it to check through everything. I find that it helps everything to blend really well. And usually when you get to the very top, you have barely any hair to cut out. All right, so it is that simple. So now I'm gonna remove her back pieces. So we've got a little bit more hair broken up around the face here, but it's all one length in the back, so you're keeping that nice, thick, full look. And then around her face, again, it opens up. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get it dried and styled, and then I'm gonna come back in and maybe refine a little bit around the face if need be. We'll see how it's opening up, and then we'll get finished. Okay, so here is our finished look. She came out so great. I actually didn't even need to do any like cross-checking. Usually with the very minimal face framing, you don't have a lot to go back over, but it just creates the slightest bit of movement along the face, but we kept that weight throughout her side. So those people with that finer, thinner hair texture, you're gonna keep the thickness underneath. So that's why you wanna make sure you are over directing the hair and pulling it towards you as you slide your shears down. That way you are keeping the maximum amount of length and thickness at the bottom. Be sure when you are creating those face framing pieces with your clients that you make note of how their natural hairline is falling, so you're not taking out too much weight like myself, where I will be bald if I cut too much into my face framing pieces. Again, we did all one length in the back, so that way you're keeping it nice, thick, and full everywhere. If you wanted to create more face framing, simply just angle those hands back away from you instead of going towards you to cut into it a little bit more. But if you're wanting to maintain the most amount of thickness, make sure you're over directing and pulling the hair towards you as you cut. As always, please like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment below if you guys have any questions. I always love answering and talking to you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this week's video, and I will see you next week.